Thank you. I think those, for me, are some of the concrete examples that all of you have given around how work with men and boys really looks like beyond the theory, right? And I think it's always interesting to see how program design is the one thing we least discuss in platforms such as these, yet this is where people come to really learn what the work that we do really looks like. I'd like to open the next few minutes to the audience if there are any questions or inputs, or share your own experiences of working with young people, so that we all benefit from having you around. Anyone interested in sharing with us perspectives on youth work, your experiences working with young people? Yes, ma'am. Remy, I need a microphone here. Thank you. And please just introduce yourself so we know who you are and where you're coming from.
My name is Maria Villarreal. I am Mexican, but I live in Guatemala. I think that. Yes. Okay. My name is Maria Eugenia Villarreal. I am the director of ECPAT in Guatemala. I am Mexican. We have a project supported by Promundo, Men Engaged, about how to involve young men, fathers, young fathers, in pre and post controls and childbirth in the framework of health sector, in order they can strengthen the ties between fathers and their children. This is a way to avoid the gender violence. We are testing this project in Guatemala City, and we expect a lot of this project. It's a new methodology with new concepts, with a new paradigm, how we can involve young fathers to stop gender violence.
Thank you, Maria. And before you sit down,
yes.
Have you started recruiting the young fathers? Are you finding it easy to bring them on board?
Yes. In the healthcare clinics, we are involved in and we are contacting the young fathers, and also with the army and police. Army young fathers, police young fathers. We are trying also to involve them.
Thank you so much. Yes, Muruti.
My name is Benon. I come from Uganda and I work for Save the Children International. And thank you for the moderation and in the discussions we've just had. My question is about policy formulation and policy financing that supports the work with young people. My experience with my government is that we have not had very supportive policies that support work with young people, especially in areas of reproductive health. And even where advocacies have been done and such inclusions have been made, there is a huge challenge that relates to financing these policies, and so that it can be operationalized and so that it can be implemented. Could you share with us, if you have some breakthroughs in your own experiences or your countries, how this interplay seems to be working out, or if there are particular observations that you want to make in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I'll have the panelists pick a question, and then if you all have something to contribute, we will. There's another.
My name is Desmond Lesija, and I'm from South Africa with Sonke Gender Justice. Thanks for the stimulating discussion and reflections. I've got two questions. What are your experiences of engaging with religious and cultural institutions or processes around the question that you're raising? And second to that, what is it that you would probably like to see changing in the values and the practice of those institutions to advance the agenda of the questions that you've been putting forth to us.
Thank you, Reverend. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Bharat Bhagat from Lions Clubs India Foundation. It's a Lions Clubs International program where we are giving life skills program to the young children from 6 to 20. Susan, I have a question for you. You have any specialized program for training the auto rickshaw drivers? Because that requires a lot of counseling, lot of explanations, and lot of homework to be done. And number two, how do you take care of finance of preparing your team? That's my question. Because I personally believe beyond 50s they are gone. Young people can make miracles. But if you start, he rightly said, bend a young tree is easier. So if you start from the young children from 6 or 7, the things can be much better and easier. Can you just explain how do you work? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been advised that I haven't been looking to my right. Any questions on this side? Yes.
I have the microphone
And then
already.
I'll come to you.
Hello? I have the microphone already, so...
That's fine.
First of all, let me congratulate you with what you're doing. It is, the level of the discussion is quite high. My name is Henry MacDonald. I'm the Ambassador of Suriname at the United Nations. 2 years ago, I was the chairman of the Third Committee, and I realized that in the discussions of the Third Committee, when we discuss social development issues, many of the representatives of the European countries and some Asian countries were youth representatives, which is, of course, a wonderful thing. What I was missing is to see youth representatives coming from regions like Africa, my own region, GRULAC, the Latin American and Caribbean region, or Asia. I think from Asia, there are only, I think, Japan and maybe 1 or 2 others. You know, I want to compliment you with what you're doing and want to encourage those youth representatives from those regions to put more pressure on your governments to at least, you know, come to the United Nations and to participate in the deliberations at the United Nations. The way my European colleagues are doing it, and I need to compliment Sri Lanka as well. Sri Lanka is doing a wonderful job in that regard, is to grant internships to young people. And that's a way which, you know, you can include them and try to work with them as well. But once again, thank you very much for very stimulating discussions, and I'm really enjoying it. Thanks.
Well, Ambassador, maybe the problem is in some of our countries you're as young as you feel. So you could be 65 and you're still a youth. Perpetual youthdom, right? I'll come back to this section at the very far end.
I asked, sorry. Because I asked earlier, yes, I'm the first who raised the hand. Okay?
Okay.
Sorry, extremely sorry.
It's okay.
I am Mahendra from Sri Lanka. My organization is Healthy Lanka. When we are, thank you for this opportunity. When we are talking about what are the challenges facing youth, in my experience, alcohol use is a very, very, very big challenge to youth, because to youth means both female and male youth, because in my context that alcohol usage is a masculinity one. Male youth are using alcohol, and there are a lot of myths around alcohol use, and youth are facing to that challenge. And other side is that female youth, they very few number of female youth using alcohol, but they are the victims of male youth, male alcoholism, because they have to face lot of challenges, lot of inhabitants and like that. Okay, when we are working with youth, we must consider on that, because we have a number of years experience in work with youth, that alcohol prevention is a very, very effective way to develop youth. That's my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. If I may please ask that we go to the far right. Yes. Thank you.
Gracias. I have a problem because I don't speak very well English. Pero le voy a pedir al compa de Guatemala que me ayude con la intervención, ¿ya? Bueno, dos cosas quería comentar, que es cómo nosotros estamos concibiendo el tema de participación, de manera específica con los jóvenes, pero también el tema del involucramiento de hombres, ¿no? Cómo, si reducimos nuestra idea de participación a la sensibilización, o qué más estamos esperando, ¿no? Eso es uno. Y la otra es cómo ustedes perciben desde sus experiencias país, ¿no? Desde sus experiencias locales, el tema de la participación, pero de cara al problema país, ¿no? Por lo menos en Perú, que es del país de donde yo vengo, muchos espacios de participación juvenil se reduce a espacios tipo congreso, espacios tipo voluntariado, pero que finalmente se reduce a levantar una agenda sobre salud sexual reproductiva, y por otro lado los ambientalistas, pero que finalmente no se llega a discutir jóvenes discutiendo problemas país. O sea, no se reduce el tema de la juventud como mi problema por ser joven o por la edad, sino como yo joven puedo ser un agente activo de cambio y de transformación, ¿no? De mi país. O sea, puedo discutir lo de mi país, no solo por ser joven, ¿no? No solo por aquello que me toca. Entonces se reduce, ¿no? Desde las cooperantes y desde el Estado, los jóvenes como sujetos, ¿no? Que finalmente son de discurso más de agentes de cambio de cara a una transformación social, ¿no? Bueno, eso quería comentarles y que me comenten cómo les va el proceso de participación, que es el tema que han abordado bastante en la mesa. Gracias.
Okay, so we will translate and then he will respond at the same time. Okay. We'll take two last people from the front and then we'll respond to the questions and also give our closing remarks. Yeah? Thanks. Where's the microphone at this point? Can I please come to the two in the front? And then...
Yeah, my name is Joshi Jose, and I'm from Breakthrough. So Breakthrough is known for this campaign on Ring the Bell, which is a very pretty famous. So we most of the times we in all of our programs actually we engage very closely with the young people in most of our, and we walk through a model called campaigning. That's what we do. Because we work with young people, we also the kind of campaigns we take up. We don't do the traditional way of campaigning. What we do is, just to give you an example, recently we had a campaign in UP. Campaign was against, you know, many of the Indian people, they know about this. Two of the women got raped and hanged, two of the girls, in fact. The campaign was against that, to bring in sensitization and the government to kind of respond to the need. The way we did it, you know, it's called, the campaign was called Muavza Nahi Suraksha, which is in English it's called we need safety, not compensation. Because in UP, the state with Shan is coming from, there is this trend of every time the rape happens, it's compensated with a sum of money. Government gives compensation. So the whole campaign was, it's not compensation what we need, it's actually the safety. The way we did it is, you know, a bunch of young people came together. As the campaigning was going on the street, it was simultaneously broadcasted through the social media to the global constituencies. So there was Twitter, there was, with Facebook, there was the mobile penetration, which is through Gramwani, is another agency. So when it was connected, the amplification process itself becomes so big. There was an outcry at the grassroots level. There was an outcry at the state and at the national level, and there was also global tweets coming around the campaigning. So it was a small campaign going on in one small place, But because of youth amplification through social media, it became a big event. So it's
And then we have our last input. Oh, I'll come back
Hi,
to
hi.
you. You'll be there.
Okay, so my name is Srinivas and I work with an organization called Azad Foundation in Delhi. Now, I have one question actually. First of all, I think youth is not a very, one cannot say it's a homogeneous community. It is stratified, and sometimes they also represent conflicting identities. So therefore, I mean, all of you who have engaged with youth, how do you deal with that? And second part of my question is, now in the past, say, 15, 20, 25 years, the forces of globalization and the market has also influenced the way youth thinks. How do you see it? Is it an enabling factor in all the situations that you are talking about, or it become a disabling factor to engage youth? It's just a question to all of you.
Thank you very much for your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Geetali Vinayak Mandakini. I put my mother's name in my name. And we are having an organization in Maharashtra, Marathi organization, Purush Uach. That is men they speak. And we publish annual number. Annually we publish one magazine in which men only they write. And men they write about their emotions and how they feel about their sexuality and how they are brought up. And what are the patriarchal things which are disturbing them, which are making them hurdles to become a good human. So in this, only men they write, and they write about their emotions and all that. 25 years back, the young men, they started speaking about patriarchy and how it is affecting them. And how the feminist movement is their own movement also.
Yes.
And that is now we are looking at women as well as men who are youngsters, and we are just positively finding out positive change in the youngsters. They are speaking out openly, and they are challenging the patriarchy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's quite an important thing you've brought up around how patriarchy not only affects women, but it also can negatively impact on men, and we seldom have those voices coming out. Yes.
My name is Sami Hilali. I'm from Afghanistan, a country where there was war for 40 years. I think it's the best place to thank international community that right now Afghanistan is a country where there is partly stability, and you have youths, more than 6,000 male and female students are going to the schools. We have a program, Access to Justice, in a country where there is no justice for nobody. But we are providing access justice for women. We have a program, and we found it very useful for the first time in Afghanistan. There has been millions of dollars spending in Afghanistan, but not much effective. We started this program in 2008. It's a program we make a community-based committee in each and every village, whereas there is no access of governmental justice system there. So we make our own justice system in that community, and we are gathering people from that community, and mostly young people, that they have the courage to speak up. We have every year more than 12,000 violence against women cases, but none of these cases were registered because nobody dared to register the program. Right now we engaged young people graduated from law schools and Sharia law, which is based in my country. So we engage these people in community-based, and they are providing access to justice. If the case is critical, these young people, they are free. They are providing free advocacy, and they are referring the cases to the court system, and they are following up the case till the end of the case when they find the result. And we have another program. We are providing literacy programs. It's a remote system of literacy. The people that they are graduated from 12 and 10 onward, we are providing them online degrees in Afghanistan. The program right now, we are covering 28 provinces. I'm working with the Asia Foundation.
Thank you very much. Wow, I wasn't quite expecting so much contribution. I think the nice thing about, having an audience that also has, significant amount of experience in the topic is we also learn, what some of the best practice has been in your own context. I just would like to say we've now come to the end of the session, but we're going to, before we close, just respond to some of the questions that came up. Not everything was a question. So there was a question around, experiences working with the religious and cultural sector, and, what do you have any, what are your experiences around this? And maybe I should ask Semi to take this question and then do your closing remarks after that. There was a question from Ben around policy formulation and policy financing. Lindsay, if you could maybe speak to that. There was another question or issue around alcohol, the use of alcohol. And then I was thinking maybe that's something that Zishan could talk to and perhaps just share with us, if your programs address the issue of high alcohol intake and whether the programs are actually working. There was comments around young people becoming more vocal and lobbying for participation, especially in global policy platforms, going to the UN. And I think that's something that we can all speak to as part of our closing remarks. And then there was a question that many of us didn't hear, or it was a comment. If you could please take that and then just respond, tell us briefly what the question was, respond to it, and then also do your closing remarks. Yeah? If I've left anyone out, my apologies. Okay, so let's start with you, Jose.
Thank you, and gracias al compañero de Perú. He was asking to us about youth participation, what we are understanding in a real and profound sense, the youth participation related to engaging men and boys. And we are asking about where we are talking about youth participation, thinking beyond sensitization process or volunteers programs, development for youth participation. He was speaking about, in many cases, international cooperation or governments are involving youth people and men and boys in specific agendas like sexual and reproductive health rights and justice or environment process, but they are not involving youth people or men and boys in a whole and comprehensive and holistic views of development. And so in this case, I think this is a condition in where the countries, societies, and international cooperation are not considering as citizenship with all and full potential to participation in whole process. And this is a challenge for all of us in different spaces, different levels. I am an international cooperation right now, and I can understand you. It's not too easy to transform the social imaginaries about youth because the power relationships are defining the agendas, the access to different spaces of participation. I think your opinion, it's very, very important to consider young people and engaging men and boys in a real and profound sense of participation if we really want to do and to have different societies, different countries, and a different world.
Yeah, the question about policy formulation and financing, I think that's I'm happy to maybe chat about that after the panel. It's just a very, I think, something that, particularly financing for global policy change, which is probably the only thing I can speak to and not very well at that. It seems a very complicated process in space. There are, I think, some new funds, particularly for sexual reproductive health and rights, and I think something that the youth, for lack of, the global youth movement, I don't know that there is such a homogenous thing, but something that youth advocates and activists can do is to help to advise those funds to make sure that they are responsive to the needs of youth programming. So I can maybe chat about that after this panel. And the only thing I really want to say in closing is if there are any youth activists, particularly focused on sexual reproductive health and rights in this space, I'd love to chat with you because we're growing our program at Women Deliver. So maybe we can chat after this panel. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tumi, and thanks for trying to allocate the questions, because it was like a big menu, and I'm like, I want to say something about that. Like, I want to say that the problem is not really alcohol use by young people, but alcohol misuse by everyone, men, women, old, young, and I want to say something about everything, but I'll try to control myself. Just because Lindsay talked about the question from Uganda regarding financing, that so many different levels to look at this. And I know that it's a discussion that hasn't been had in detail, but I am glad that as part of the post-2015 discussions, I know that, for instance, in June, July next year, there will be a Financing for Development Summit held in Addis Ababa, where they'll be talking about how to finance this framework. And that's at the global level. At country level, my background is in economics, and one of the things I've found most exciting to do is not the working in AU or UN spaces talking about resolutions and declarations, but bringing it down to country level. How do you understand the country development planning process, and how do you equip young people so that they can engage actively with that? So how do you understand the budgeting process from the formulation through legislation, implementation, its monitoring and evaluation? And until at different country levels, we are able to push our government to put our issues in the country development plan, in the national budget, they're just paying as lip service. So that is very important. And again, I'm happy to chat about how to do that in different countries. We've done trainings in a couple of other countries across Asia Pacific and in Africa on how to help young sexual and reproductive health activists to understand that country development planning process, whether your country is working on a poverty reduction strategy or just a normal country development plan, how to engage with that. And I think that is a space that I would recommend all of us to get involved in. It is true that we are passionate about sexual and reproductive health and engaging men in women's empowerment, but if we're unable to get our issues reflected in the country's own admission of what its priorities should be, then we are just going to have these issues on the shelves and not really implemented. So that's one thing. The very interesting subject about religious leaders. And I think there's no one how, because I think there's the key admission that this is an important stakeholder group to engage with. I remember the story of a bishop who told a story in Namibia at the African Sexuality Conference, who said he was in a room with about 40 bishops, and he asked them, how many of you have children? And 40 hands proudly went up. And then he asked, how many of you have sex? And then the hands were like, not really forthcoming, but if you were proud that you had children, chances are that you may have had sex, So this is just also very reflecting in how then we address these issues. But I know that in a country like Ghana, for instance, religious leaders wield so much power, even more than politicians, in what decisions people take about their lives and what they believe to be right or wrong. So they are an important stakeholder group to work with. In Ghana, as part of a project that was called the African Youth Alliance project that I was part of, we worked very closely with various religious groups, including, for instance, a big network called the Christian Health Association of Ghana, which was just churches who had hospitals, including the Catholic Church, who were, before we engaged with them, forbidding even the distribution of condoms in the health facilities. And through engaging with them, we were able to get them not only to allow the distribution of condoms and such services that young people needed, but to provide youth-friendly services, get their staff trained in how to deal with young people when they come to their health facility, in providing confidential, non-judgmental service and things like that. So there are opportunities, and it's the same for traditional leaders as well. So there are many opportunities, I think, for engaging with religious leaders, and we really need to take that opportunity to engage with them. Now, in closing, we know that we are in very exciting times. Many of us heard about the Millennium Development Goals on radio somewhere far away, where a small group of elite, privileged people came into a room and decided on what their priorities would be for the next decade or so. Now there is the discussion going on about the post-2015 development agenda, and it's been very extensive in many ways. Those of us who are trying to engage with it are finding difficulty knowing where to put our efforts because it's so extensive, but it's an opportunity, and I want to say in closing that whatever you're working on, particularly related to sexual and reproductive health and rights and women's empowerment, please, let's take this opportunity to engage, because negotiations are starting in January. All of our governments are going to the table to help define what the global priority for the so-called Sustainable Development Goals will be for the next 15 years. My personal take is that no goals can be sustainable if it doesn't focus enough on young people. And we need to get this message really clearly out there to our leaders. So it takes all of our efforts, and I hope that in whatever corner you are, whether you're working at country level or regional level, that you would look at how you can take advantage of this and help us make a strong case for young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you covered all the points, and unfortunately I'm not working directly with alcohol, so I know this is a challenge for youth, but I believe that youth spend their whole life in 4 different spaces. I believe that first of all is family, friend, education, workplace, and leisure. So is there any space for himself or herself? No, I think no. So we need a 5th space, I think, and this is our 5th space. And I will give you an answer to Mr. Bharat. We started a Safe Suffer in 2010 as a campaign, and we have 3 beneficiaries, women commuter, auto rickshaw driver, and youth also. And we are running this campaign through fellowship program, and we started working with auto rickshaw driver. It was really very difficult for us to deal with them, and gradually we worked with them, and now we sensitize approximately 350 auto rickshaw drivers till now, and we are planning so far, but as you told, as funding, that no, there is not a particular funding for this program itself, and we are trying to deal with this, and from our own fellowship program, this project is running. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of you for coming to our session. We've really enjoyed having you here, and special thank you to my guests. It's just been amazing listening to all the work that you've done. Thank you so much.